You've been looking for something, not in the way people hunt for keys or chase after goals, but in the quiet, aching way souls search for home. And maybe you didn't even know that's what it was. Home. A place not made of walls, but of remembrance. A state where nothing is missing and everything makes sense. So before anything begins, pause with me. Inhale softly. Let the breath carry you into yourself. Let the noise of the world fall away, just for now. Wherever you're listening, whether it's dawn stretching across your window or the shadows of midnight wrapped around you, type in the comments below where you are and what time it is. Because no matter the hour or the place, you are exactly where you're meant to be. You were never far from the truth, only distracted from it. Distracted by what you were told to chase: success, approval, belonging. Distracted by the echoing noise of a world that never taught you how to listen to your own stillness. But something ancient in you remembers, and that's why you're here. Not by coincidence, but by sacred timing. Because the truth that set souls free was never lost. It was only buried beneath layers of forgetting. You don't need more teachings. You don't need another guru. You need to remember. Remember that every thought you think is more than electricity in your brain. It is a decree, a command to the unseen to shape itself around your belief. Your thoughts are not observers. They are architects. Every situation in your life, whether beautiful or broken, is not a punishment or reward. It is a mirror, reflecting what you have accepted, what you have declared, what you have entertained in the sacred halls of your mind. There is no distant force writing your story with ink you cannot touch. You are the pen. You are the hand. You are the author of your world, even if no one told you. And here's the great liberation. When you realize that, you no longer wait for the world to change before you feel different. You change first, and the world follows. This is not philosophy. This is law. When Jesus said, "Let it be done unto you according to your faith," he wasn't offering comfort. He was delivering mechanics. He was showing us the lever of creation, belief. Not the soft, half-hearted belief that flickers in doubt, but focused faith, the kind that sees beyond appearances. Because appearances are echoes, and faith is origin. When you think something long enough, often enough, with enough feeling, it becomes a mold. And that mold becomes your experience. Whether joy or pain, wholeness or lack, it all begins in the invisible chamber of thought. But the world taught you otherwise, didn't it? That things happen to you, that luck is real, that fate is unchangeable. They taught you to react, not to generate. But even your silence is a prayer. Even your inaction is a signal. And the signal doesn't lie. It tells the truth about your inner alignment. So stop waiting to be worthy. Stop waiting to feel ready. The kingdom, that sacred place of peace, clarity, and power, isn't found after success. It's found before it. It's accessed not by striving, but by remembering. Remember that you can choose a new thought right now. One that lifts instead of shrinks. One that blesses instead of curses. One that builds instead of breaks. Not because it's wishful thinking, but because thought is law, and law obeys. You can't walk in peace and think in hate. You can't expect abundance and think in fear. You can't hold the vibration of illness and demand health. Not because you're being punished, but because reality is consistent. It responds to the dominant frequency you live in. So if you truly want a new world, you must create a new mind. You must stop tending to the shadows on the wall and turn to the light within. Because the projector has always been in your hands. This is not positive thinking. This is divine alignment. And yes, it requires discipline. Not the discipline of force, but the discipline of focus. Because fear will knock, doubt will whisper. The old voice, the one shaped by shame, limitation, and past, it will try to reclaim its throne. But you don't have to fight it. You just have to outshine it. Each time you think a thought anchored in truth, I am whole, I am enough, I am provided for, you carve a new path in your mind. A path that becomes a bridge, and that bridge leads back to the kingdom. Not a place in the sky, not a future after death, but a reality available now. So ask yourself, softly, honestly, what am I thinking right now? Is it rooted in truth or fear, in God or in shame, in light or illusion? And if it is not rooted in love, don't curse it, don't shame it, just release it, like an old coat that no longer fits. Because you are not bound to any thought. You are free, free to choose again, and again, and again. That is how you return. Not through grand gestures, but through moment-by-moment remembrance. So this is your first key, the master key, the one that unlocks all others. Change your thoughts, and your world must change. Not because of magic, but because of law. Divine law. The law that shaped the stars. The law that holds your soul together. The law that says, as you think, so shall it be. And now that you remember this, the next key begins to stir. Because what if the kingdom you've been trying to reach was never far at all? What if it was always within? The kingdom is not a place you travel to. It's not a promised destination after death, nor a secret realm locked behind religion's gates. It is here, now. And more than that, it is within you. This is the revolution no pulpit wanted to echo. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was too powerful. If you truly grasp that the divine resides not in rituals or relics, but in your breath, your being, your bones, then you no longer need to be ruled. You become sovereign. This isn't comfort. This is confrontation. This is the unraveling of every illusion that told you to search outward, beg upward, and wait endlessly. You were never separate, only told that you were. You've been taught to chase love, security, meaning, salvation. But what if you've been running in circles around something that was always inside? Like a compass needle spinning, confused, because the magnet was right beneath it. Jesus didn't come to point up. He came to point in. The kingdom of God is within you, he said. And that sentence still ripples through time like thunder disguised as a whisper. He didn't say it to soothe. He said it to awaken. He didn't offer escape from the world, but a radical way to transform it, from the inside out. And you can't do that unless you remember where your center truly is. You've looked in scriptures, in sermons, in sacred sites. You've searched in the approval of others, in the highs of success, even in the silence of defeat. And each time, some part of you quietly asked, is this it? Because you weren't meant to live disconnected. You weren't designed to feel like an exile in your own life. That ache you felt, that holy dissatisfaction, wasn't a flaw. It was a signal. The signal that says, come home. Not to a building, not to a belief, but to yourself. The self that has never truly forgotten, only fallen asleep. The kingdom is not a future, it's a frequency. It's a vibration of truth that begins to hum the moment you remember who you are. Not who you were told to be, not who the world measured and weighed, but who you are beneath the noise. And who are you? You are the temple. not made with human hands, but shaped by divine light. You are the breath of the sacred, clothed in skin. You are the echo of eternity, alive, aware, and more whole than you've dared to believe. You do not have to earn this truth. You only have to receive it. Because the greatest tragedy isn't that people are lost. It's that they are looking everywhere but within. They chase gurus, climb mountains, kneel before golden altars, all while the most sacred altar remains untouched, the one inside their chest. You cannot receive outside what you deny within. You cannot feel divine if you reject your own soul. You cannot walk in power while claiming you're unworthy to hold it. Religion has often placed God on a throne in the clouds. But Jesus broke that illusion. He said, "The Father and I are one." Not as a metaphor, as a reality. And if that's true for him, it's true for you. Not because you're perfect, but because your essence is. Say it. Not for ritual, for remembrance. I and the Father are one. Say it not because you feel worthy, but because it already is. Say it until the doubt cracks. Say it until the veil lifts. Say it until you stop bowing to your unworthiness and rise into your inheritance. You are not just walking toward the divine, you are walking as the divine. You do not need permission to enter the kingdom. You are the kingdom. The moment you recognize that, the door opens. Not because it was locked, but because your eyes were closed. And how do you live from this knowing? Not through effort, through awareness, not through striving, through surrender. When you close your eyes, not in escape, but in stillness, the veil thins. And in that holy silence, what was hidden becomes obvious. You begin to feel it in the way your breath slows, in the way peace rises, in the way love returns. Not from outside, but from the deepest place in you. The center behind your thoughts, the space before your next word. There, in that stillness, the kingdom begins to shine. And the outer world? It starts to reflect what you now carry. You see it in the eyes of strangers, in the timing of events, in the grace that surrounds even your chaos. But ignore it, and you'll keep wandering. You'll keep chasing. You'll keep confusing motion for movement and consumption for connection, because you were never meant to find the kingdom. You were meant to remember it. And remembering doesn't require anything but turning inward. You don't have to fix yourself first. You don't have to get better. You don't have to earn spiritual rank. You only have to see clearly that God never left, because God was never separate. The fire never died. It just got buried. And now it's rising. So stop running, stop seeking, be still, and know the kingdom is not out there. It is in your next breath. It is in your heartbeat. It is in the simple, stunning truth that you are not missing anything. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not waiting to become divine. You are divine, disguised as a becoming. And now, as you remember, everything shifts. Because the next key is ready. The next door is near. You've awakened the kingdom. Now it's time to understand how your mind governs its gates. You've now glimpsed the kingdom within, not as a symbol or future hope, but as a present reality humming beneath your thoughts. And yet, the question remains: why does life still feel off-center, chaotic, or burdened with pain, even when the truth is known? Because knowing the kingdom exists and living from it are not the same. To live from it, you must understand the laws that govern it. Not religious law, not societal law, but mental law. The invisible architecture of creation itself. You were taught that things just happen. That life is a string of random events, a roulette of fate. But Jesus never spoke like that. His words were not suggestions. They were precise, direct, and often unnervingly specific. That as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. According to your faith, be it done unto you. What you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. These aren't poetic flourishes. They're mechanics. They're spiritual physics. They reveal a truth most never dare to fully accept. Your mind is not a mirror. It is a mold. And what you pour into it, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, becomes your world. If your mind is filled with fear, you live in scarcity, conflict, tension. Not because you're cursed, because the law is consistent. It does not argue, it does not judge, it reflects. If you think like a victim, you experience life as a battle. If you think like a soul, you begin to walk in harmony. This isn't metaphorical. This is vibrational law. Your outer world is a photograph of your inner atmosphere. The quality of your relationships, the shape of your finances, the state of your body. They are all mirrors, not punishments. They reveal, with startling honesty, what you believe to be true beneath your conscious declarations. You might say with your lips, "I am worthy," but if your heart still carries the script of shame, the world will echo that shame. Not to hurt you, but to show you where healing is needed. This is not judgment. It's precision. It's compassion in disguise. And here lies the invitation. Stop trying to fix effects. Start reprogramming causes. The cause is always thought. The cause is always belief. The effect is form. Life, matter, experience. You cannot plant seeds of lack and reap abundance. You cannot speak healing and carry hidden doubt. You cannot pretend to vibrate light while silently feeding fear. That's why prayer sometimes feels unanswered. Not because God is deaf, but because your inner world is divided. You say one thing, but believe another. You declare peace, but think war. You affirm wholeness, but replay the pain. Jesus didn't do that. When he said, "Rise and walk," he wasn't hoping. He was knowing. He saw the healing before it occurred. He lived in inner alignment, and reality responded like a perfectly tuned instrument. And here's the part that religious tradition too often ignores. He said we could do the same. "The works I do, you shall do also." Not in metaphor, in law. Because consciousness is not exclusive. Christ consciousness is not a one-man phenomenon. It's the divine pattern seeded in every soul, a potential that blooms in proportion to your alignment with truth. You don't need a title. You don't need permission. You don't need to be extraordinary. You need to align. What does that mean? It means choosing thoughts that harmonize with love. It means speaking from clarity instead of confusion. It means seeing yourself, not through the lens of wounds, but through the lens of spirit. You are not here to react. You are here to generate. You are not a passive product of circumstances. You are the producer of them. And yes, life happens. Yes, storms arise. But the law remains. Your inner state shapes your outer world. So when the winds howl, go inward. Find the thought that created the storm and gently replace it. Not with fluffy affirmations, but with anchored truth. Say to yourself, "I am the thinker of my thoughts. I am not my past. I am not the story that pain wrote. I am the author now." The moment you own that, even just for a breath, you stop being a prisoner and become a creator. And this is the third key. Understand that your mind is the author of your experience. Write with purpose. Speak with precision. Think as though your thoughts are prayers, because they are. The law is always listening, not to your good intentions, but to your dominant frequency, the mood you rehearse, the voice you believe, the internal narrative you never question. So start questioning it. Whose voice told you you're not enough? Whose words became your inner critic? Who told you to be small, to apologize for your light? They were wrong. You are not too much. You are not late. You are not broken. You are a creator waking up to your power. And the law, that ever-present, invisible, unbreakable law, is ready to respond. But it cannot serve you until you serve your truth. So think on purpose. Think in alignment. Because the moment your inner world becomes congruent with love, grace, and peace, your outer world can't help but reflect it. And this is the shift. Not magic, not fantasy. Law. Now breathe. Let this key settle in your chest like a compass. Because the next door doesn't require effort to open, only alignment. You've seen how your thoughts shape form. Now it's time to understand how your words command the invisible into visibility. You've begun to realize that your thoughts hold weight, that they are not idle clouds floating through your mind, but seeds with inevitable harvest. But there is another instrument of creation even more immediate, more precise, and more underestimated than thought alone. Your words. They are not just sound. They are vibration, direction, declaration. They are, quite literally, the tools through which the formless takes shape. From the beginning of time, the sacred truth has echoed across every spiritual tradition. In the beginning was the Word, not an idea, not a belief, a word, spoken, released, made flesh. You may think of prayer as begging, as pleading to a distant deity for rescue or reward. But Jesus never taught prayer that way. He didn't close his eyes and list requests. He didn't collapse in desperation. He declared, "Peace, be still. Lazarus, come forth. Be healed. I thank you, Father, that you have heard me." He didn't wait to see the change. He spoke from the change before it arrived. Not because he was hopeful, but because he was aligned. And in alignment, the word becomes law. It does not return void. It manifests. This is not mystical wishful thinking. This is spiritual science. Your words create the frame in which your life takes form. If your words are filled with complaint, lack, doubt, and fear, you are painting a canvas that will soon surround you. Not by punishment, but by law. The universe responds not to what you want, but to what you speak with conviction. It responds to the emotional tone of your language, not the politeness of your prayers. And here's the part that changes everything. You are always praying, not just when you're on your knees, not just when you fold your hands. Every sentence, every phrase, every sigh with emotion behind it. It is a form of prayer. And the universe listens. Your soul listens. Creation listens. When you say, "This will never work. Nothing ever goes right. I can't take this anymore." You're not venting. You're programming. And that programming becomes your atmosphere. It becomes the mold the invisible uses to shape your next moment. Not because you're being punished, but because you are that powerful. So now you must ask, what kind of world are my words building? Start listening to yourself. Start catching the quiet curses you place upon your day, your body, your relationships. Every time you say, "I always mess this up," or "I'm just unlucky," you are stamping your world with limitation, and you wonder why nothing changes. It's not because the divine isn't listening. It's because you're not aligning. But you can. Right now, right here, start by shifting your language from reaction to revelation. Speak not of what is, but of what is becoming. Not because you're lying to yourself, but because you're guiding yourself. Say it, not once, but repeatedly. So I am whole. I am guided. I am provided for. I walk in divine order, not as performance, not to impress others, but to rewire your own inner frequency. Because your words are not for God's benefit. They're for yours. They reshape your brain. They realign your mood. They recalibrate your vibration. But words alone aren't enough. Without belief, they are like seeds thrown onto stone. They don't root. They don't grow. That's why your declarations must come from a space of inner resonance, from alignment, not obligation. You must say them until your soul starts to believe them. And when that happens, when thought and speech and belief all point in the same direction, the physical must follow. It's law. Jesus never begged. He thanked. He affirmed. He stood in a truth already known within. And that's why miracles didn't surprise him. They were inevitable. You've been told your words don't matter, that they're venting, emotional noise, throwaway lines. But the spiritual law does not judge tone or intention. It judges frequency. And frequency is shaped by emotion, especially spoken emotion. So when you speak, speak like a creator, like a vessel, like one who knows the word is holy because it is you. The more you practice this, the more your life begins to take shape, not as reaction to the world, but as an outflow of the kingdom within. You become a walking prayer, a living decree. You don't ask for peace. You become it. You don't wait for change. You announce it. This is not arrogance, this is alignment. Stop asking. Start declaring. Stop pleading. Start commanding. From love, from clarity, from divine identity. And here's the miracle. You don't need perfection for your words to carry power. You only need truth, not borrowed truth, embodied truth. When your words rise from the stillness inside, from the frequency of love, they activate reality. You speak, and things shift. People move. Doors open. Not because you manipulated them, but because you aligned with the code. This is the fourth key, one of the most sacred. Prayer is not request. Prayer is remembrance. Words are not wishes. Words are blueprints. So choose yours with the reverence they deserve. Speak as if what you say becomes real, because it does. And now that you know the power of your words, the next door waits for you to unlock the force that fuels those words. The force of faith. There is a current running beneath everything you say and everything you think. A hidden force shaping how your words land, how your prayers unfold, and how your world responds. That current is called faith, but not the passive faith you were taught. Not hope disguised as helplessness. Not the trembling belief that begs the sky to intervene. The faith that Jesus spoke of and lived was a creative force, a flame that doesn't wait for evidence, but creates it. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, he said, you can move mountains. He didn't mean metaphorical mountains. He meant anything that appears immovable, illness, poverty, fear, patterns, karma, not by chance. By law, faith is not the last step after you've tried everything else. It's the first step. The unseen leap that says, I know what I carry is more real than what I see, and that's where most people stop, because it's terrifying. To walk into the unknown while the storm still rages. To say, I am whole, while pain echoes in your bones. To declare, I am abundant when the bank account is gasping. To whisper, I am safe when the world feels like it's burning. That's faith. Not wishful thinking, not denial, but knowing. Knowing that spirit is the deeper reality. That form follows frequency. That truth is eternal, even when appearances lie. Because appearances do lie. They show you what was, not what is becoming. They reflect your previous vibration, not your current choice. So if you keep reacting to what you see, you remain stuck in an echo loop, chasing effects, never touching cause. But faith breaks the loop. Faith is the only energy strong enough to override fear. And it's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't scream, "Look how spiritual I am." No. True faith is quiet, constant, and utterly unshakable. It is the soul's certainty that says, "Even in the dark, I know the sun exists." And here's the truth that religion forgot to tell you. Your life bends around your belief, not your status, not your merit, not your performance, your belief. That's why Jesus often said, "Your faith has made you whole." Not my power, not God's whim, your alignment, because God is always ready to flow. The current of creation is never turned off, but your faith is the voltage regulator, the channel size, the openness of your soul. When you believe, truly believe, the gates open wide. But when you believe one thing by day and fear another by night, your energy is divided. And divided faith creates confusion, not miracles. You cannot affirm abundance and then obsess over lack. You cannot declare love and then shrink into fear. You cannot speak wholeness while clinging to a fractured identity. Faith must be pure, not perfect, but focused. It must be one-pointed, like light through a magnifying glass, soft until it aligns, and then suddenly, unstoppable. So how do you cultivate it? You start with trust over panic, vision over fear, persistence over despair. You practice holding the vibration of what you know is real, even if nothing in your life reflects it yet. Faith doesn't wait for the evidence. Faith creates the evidence. It moves before the proof. It thanks before the gift arrives. It builds before the ground is dry. This is why it's called the evidence of things unseen. And if you want your words to carry power, if you want your thoughts to reshape reality, faith must be their engine. Not borrowed faith, not memorized quotes. Your faith, your internal yes to divine truth, even if it trembles, even if it starts as a whisper, even if it's just a spark. That spark is enough to light the path, because every step taken in faith strengthens the current. Every choice to trust over doubt sends a signal that reshapes your atmosphere. And here's the miracle. You don't need to feel it to live it. Faith isn't a feeling, it's a frequency. You may feel afraid and still walk in faith. You may feel unsure and still act from truth. You may feel weak and still speak from strength. Because faith doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what you know, what you're aligned with, what you're willing to hold on to, even when the world spins in the opposite direction. That is the faith Jesus walked in. Not as a divine exception, but as a human example. He didn't wait for waters to still before stepping out. He didn't wait for the healing before declaring it. He didn't wait for provision before blessing it. He spoke from completion. He acted from inner knowing. He moved from alignment with the divine pattern, and reality obeyed. And you, dear soul, are no different. Not because you're trying to become God, but because you already carry the divine within. Faith is not the bridge to God. Faith is the signal from God through you. So begin now, even if it's shaky, even if it's quiet. Say to your soul, I trust the unseen. I believe in what is becoming. I know who I am, even when I forget. And let that be your rhythm. Let that be your fire. Because when faith burns steady, even as a whisper, the next key will begin to glow. A key older than time. A frequency stronger than any force. The one truth that holds all others together. Love is not the soft idea you were taught. It's not merely the flutter of affection or the fleeting warmth between bodies. Love, in its purest form, is not emotional at all. It is elemental, foundational. the pulse behind existence, the current that moves galaxies, births stars, and binds every soul to every other. It is the greatest power in the universe, not because it shouts, but because it doesn't have to. Everything we've explored so far, thought, word, belief, faith, none of it holds its full charge unless it is grounded in love. Without love, even your strongest prayers become noise. Even your greatest faith can become pride. Even miracles, stripped of love, lose their light. That's why love isn't just another key. It's the center of the circle, the source code. When Jesus was asked about the greatest commandment, he didn't speak of rituals or hierarchies. He said, "Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself." He didn't separate those, because he knew you can't love the divine without loving what carries it. And you can't truly love others if you've abandoned yourself. Love is the frequency of the kingdom. Not sentiment, but alignment. A way of being. A state of clarity so deep that everything else, judgment, fear, anger, dissolves in its presence. When you walk in love, you don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to be right. You don't need to control outcomes. Because love already is the outcome. But here's the truth. Love is not easy. It's not passive. It's not weak. Love is the hardest and most courageous thing you will ever choose. Because love doesn't just bless the beautiful, it sees through the broken. It chooses unity when separation feels safer. Anyone can love what is kind, familiar, pleasant. But love becomes divine when it blesses the difficult. When it looks into the eyes of the one who wounded you and still sees God flickering inside. When it meets betrayal and doesn't shrink, but transforms. When it walks into the room full of noise and becomes the stillness that heals. That's love. Not the love that clings, demands, or defines, but the love that frees, that allows, that lifts. It does not mean staying in harm's way. It does not mean tolerating abuse. But it does mean refusing to carry hate in your heart. Because hate will never protect you. It only cages you. And this is where love becomes your greatest weapon. It melts fear. It unhooks the claws of judgment. It purifies every other key into its highest potential. Without love, spiritual power becomes manipulation. Without love, wisdom becomes arrogance. Without love, even truth becomes a sword that wounds. So if you want to rise, truly rise, you must let love be the air you breathe. Not love for show, not love for performance, but love as your baseline, your compass, your atmosphere. And when you do, something incredible begins to happen. Resistance vanishes, synchronicity flows, the world softens. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Love changes how you see, and how you see is everything. When you look through the lens of love, even enemies become teachers. Even pain becomes wisdom. Even shadows become invitations to greater light. That's why the mystics didn't seek power. They sought love. Because love is power. The kind that doesn't crush, but heals. And this isn't just poetry. It's practice. It's everyday courage. It's choosing not to snap back when you're provoked. It's pausing before judgment rises. It's forgiving when resentment feels justified. It's blessing those who don't bless you. It's praying for those you don't understand. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve the freedom that love brings. And when you make that choice, again and again, you open yourself to a higher dimension of being. A level of existence where your thoughts, words, and actions move in sync with something eternal. You become a citizen of the kingdom, not just in name, but in essence. People feel it. rooms shift around you, not because of charisma, but because of presence. Because love is presence. And when you walk in love, you're no longer trying to manifest. You are the manifestation. You don't chase miracles. You become one. So begin here. Look into the mirror and speak to yourself like someone who matters. Look into the eyes of the world and remember every soul is sacred. Even the ones asleep. Even the ones lost. Even the ones who hurt others. You don't have to fix them, but you can choose not to become them. You can choose to be the one who loves anyway. Because that's the secret no one tells you. The more you love, the easier every other key becomes. Faith deepens. Words sharpen. Thoughts brighten. Gratitude rises. Forgiveness unfolds. And the kingdom opens. This is the sixth key. Not a gentle idea, but a force that rewires reality. Love is not optional. It is not the final step. It is the path itself. So let it be your guide, your ground, your governance. Let love rise from you like a sunrise. Quiet, unshakable, inevitable. And as it does, something inside you will begin to unclench. Because the next key, though often the most difficult to touch, is the one that sets your soul free. Forgiveness. There is a key that many avoid. Not because it's hidden, but because it hurts to hold. It doesn't glitter. It doesn't feel glamorous. It's not one you wave in triumph. This key is made of release, not reward. And yet, it may be the most powerful of all. Forgiveness. You think you've done it. You've said the words. You've nodded and moved on. You've buried the memory. But the wound still whispers, doesn't it? Not in words, but in tension. In the tightening of your jaw. In the flinch when their name appears. In the way your body replays the scene like it just happened. That's how you know forgiveness hasn't yet rooted. Because real forgiveness doesn't forget. It frees, not the other. You've been carrying weights that were never yours to hold. Grudges masquerading as justice. Resentment pretending to protect you. But here's the sacred truth. You cannot carry the frequency of the kingdom while holding on to chains. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is not permission. It is not approval. Forgiveness is liberation. The bold, divine decision to let go so you can rise. And it must come from the soul, not the lips. You can't fake it. You can't force it. But you can choose it. Even if it takes time. Even if it takes 70 times 7. Jesus didn't say, forgive when they apologize. He said, forgive. Period. Because it's not about them. It's about the light inside of you that can't shine through cluttered grief. Every time you replay the offense, you relive the pain. Every time you retell the story, you reopen the wound. Not because you're wrong, but because you're still bound. And yet, the door is open. You can choose, in the quiet of your heart, to release them. Not into punishment, but into light. Not for their benefit, but so you can finally breathe. This is the paradox of forgiveness. You think you're doing something for someone else, but you're actually unhooking yourself from the past. You are stepping out of the prison you built to hold them, and realizing it was always you inside. And no, it doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you allow harmful people to remain in your life. It doesn't mean you ignore consequences or erase truth. It means you refuse to be consumed by the darkness they left behind. You acknowledge the pain. You honor the wound. And then, like a warrior of spirit, you say, I release you. I release the weight. I release the story. I choose peace. And in that sacred moment, you reclaim your power. Even Jesus, bleeding, betrayed, abandoned, whispered, Father, forgive them. Not because it was easy, but because forgiveness was the highest form of love, the final act of liberation. You are not being asked to perform at that level instantly, but you are being invited into the same frequency, not for appearances, for your own healing. Because every ounce of unforgiveness is energy trapped in the past. It clouds your vision, it tightens your heart, it delays the unfolding of your peace. And you know what else it does? It lowers your vibration. It locks you out of the kingdom's clarity. Not because you're unworthy, but because your energy is out of sync with divine order. So take a moment, ask yourself who you're still holding hostage. A parent? A lover? A friend? An institution? A system? Or maybe yourself? Because self-forgiveness is just as essential. The harsh words you speak to yourself, the shame you wear like a second skin, those are also chains. You cannot walk free while dragging guilt behind you. You cannot call yourself divine and condemn yourself in the next breath. You must choose grace, not because you've done everything right, but because forgiveness is not earned. It is offered by the soul who is ready to rise. So say it softly, honestly. I forgive you. I forgive myself. I am ready to walk in light again. And if it doesn't feel complete, say it again tomorrow. Say it 1,000 times if you must. Forgiveness is not always a one-time event. It is often a sacred practice. But every time you say it, something shifts. A layer falls. A thread unravels. The cage weakens. Until one day, the memory arrives, and it no longer burns. It just breathes. It becomes a page, not a prison. And you become someone new, not because you forgot, but because you let go. This is the 7th key, not the flashiest, but maybe the most necessary, because without it, you will always carry the past into your future. You will always look forward through the lens of old wounds, and the kingdom cannot be built on the foundation of pain. So forgive, even if they never change, even if they never know, even if they never ask. Do it because your soul deserves space. Do it because your joy is waiting. Do it because you're ready to stop surviving and start living. And as you release the past, a sacred silence begins to rise. A silence not of emptiness, but of presence. Because the next key is not about action at all. It's about stillness. The blessed silence where God has always been speaking. Beyond thought, beyond word, beyond even prayer. There is a space. It doesn't speak. It doesn't shout. It doesn't strive. It simply is. This space has always been with you. Beneath the noise, beneath the urgency, beneath the mental machinery constantly spinning. You felt it in rare moments, when the world fell quiet, when time seemed to pause, when your breath returned home. And maybe you dismissed it. Maybe you rushed to fill it again. But it waited, always. This is the 8th key, the blessed silence. Not silence as the absence of sound, but silence as the presence of God. You've been taught that prayer is about words. That connection to the divine is something you earn through eloquence, repetition, or pleading. But the truest form of communion happens not when you speak, but when you stop. In that stillness, the sacred speaks, but not with language, not in syllables or scrolls. The divine speaks in knowing, in resonance, in the subtle shifts of awareness that rise when all else settles. This silence is not emptiness. It is fullness without form. It is the womb of all creation. It is the breath before the breath. It is the still place where your soul remembers. Jesus knew this. That's why he often withdrew, not to escape, but to return. To return to the place where the noise of the world fell away, and the truth within could rise again. You need that same return because you've been drenched in noise. Noise of opinions, noise of self-judgment, noise of tasks and timelines and voices that are not your own. But here's the great paradox. Until you enter silence, you won't realize how much of your thinking isn't even yours. How much of your energy has been spent reacting to echoes. Silence reveals what's real. It shows you what's rooted. It burns away what doesn't belong. And yes, it can be terrifying. Because in silence, you meet yourself. Not your curated self. Not your social self. But the you that was there before you were named. The you that isn't trying to impress anyone. The you that knows. And that knowing, that presence, that subtle hum beneath the static, that is the voice of the divine within. You do not need incense or mantras to find it. You do not need a monastery or perfect posture. You only need willingness. You only need to stop. Stop doing. Stop proving. Stop rushing. Close your eyes. Take a breath. Let that breath anchor you. And in that pause, feel the stillness between your thoughts. That is the doorway. You've been knocking on heaven's gates while standing inside the temple. You've been asking for answers while never listening for the silence that carries them. Because here's the truth. The answers are not hidden. They're quiet. And you've been too loud to hear. But now you're ready to listen. Sit with it. Even if your mind protests. Even if your thoughts spin. Even if stillness feels unbearable at first. Stay. Because beneath that mental noise is the sanctuary you've been craving. And the more you return to it, the more it opens, the more it reveals, the more it recalibrates your life. Not through force, but through frequency. You start to move differently. Speak less, mean more, act slower, impact deeper. You stop reacting. You start responding. Because silence isn't passivity. It's power without aggression. It's clarity without volume. It's strength without show. This is why true guidance rarely shouts. It nudges. It whispers. And you can only hear it in the space between thoughts. When the dust settles, when the performance drops, when you no longer need to be anyone for anyone, then, and only then, do you remember. You were never alone. Only surrounded by too much noise to feel the presence that never left. And once you felt it, once the silence becomes not absence but intimacy, you crave it. You seek it not to escape the world, but to return stronger, clearer, truer. Because silence is not a retreat from life. It is the foundation of life well lived. You begin to let go of the compulsion to explain yourself. You stop needing the world's approval to validate your path. You move in rhythm with something deeper, something holy. This is not a practice reserved for mystics or monks. This is available now, in the middle of your ordinary day, on the train, at your desk, in the shower, between breaths, anywhere you choose to pause, close your eyes, and listen, not to the world, but to your soul. And from this sacred stillness, all other keys grow stronger. Your thoughts become clearer, your words more intentional, your faith more anchored, your love more unconditional, because they are no longer tools of survival, they are extensions of presence. This is the 8th key. It does not speak. It does not perform. It simply waits behind every breath for you to return. So return often, and as you do, you'll begin to feel a new current stirring in your life. A flow you no longer have to fight to enter, because the next key is already waiting. Prosperity, not as something to chase, but as a natural result of divine alignment. Prosperity is not what you were told. It is not the prize for working harder than everyone else. It is not the reward for moral perfection. It is not a sign of divine favoritism. And it certainly isn't reserved for a lucky few. Prosperity is divine order. It is the natural result of harmony between you and the source. It is the visible echo of inner alignment. It is the fruit of knowing you are already provided for. Not someday, but now. But let's clear the fog. Prosperity is not just money. True prosperity is the condition in which all your needs, material, emotional, spiritual, are met with ease, without striving, without guilt. It's the sense of, I am held, I am supported, I am not in survival mode anymore. And that reality is not created through hustle. It's created through frequency. Yet most people have been programmed to believe otherwise. You were taught to chase. You were taught to earn. You were taught that desiring more makes you selfish. You were taught that to be spiritual is to suffer, to renounce, to shrink. But who taught you that? Not Jesus. Jesus fed multitudes. He multiplied supply. He celebrated the overflowing cup, not the empty one. He reminded us, again and again, that the Father cares even for the lilies of the field and the birds of the air. Scarcity is not holy. Lack is not spiritual. Fear of provision is not a virtue. These are inherited beliefs, not divine truths. And here's what you must remember. The universe is not built on withholding. It is built on flow. Anytime you feel cut off from that flow, it's not because God has turned away. It's because somewhere inside, you have. You've accepted lack as identity. You've made fear your normal. You've swallowed the lie that you're not allowed to receive with joy. But now, that lie is unraveling. Because prosperity isn't about what you chase. It's about what you allow. It flows to those whose minds are unclenched, whose hearts are open, whose frequency matches sufficiency, not desperation. You must understand this. You cannot attract what you secretly resent. You cannot receive what you believe you don't deserve. You cannot hold abundance with hands clenched in fear. So let's rewire. Start by saying this. I was born into an abundant universe. I am a child of infinite supply. It is safe to receive. It is sacred to flourish. Let those words drop beneath the surface like seeds. Let them begin to soften the ground hardened by years of striving. And watch what happens. When you stop chasing, life starts flowing. When you stop clinging, the river moves again. When you stop doubting, you start receiving. Because prosperity doesn't respond to want. It responds to resonance. And one of the greatest tools to create that resonance is gratitude. Not gratitude as politeness, not a forced smile, but a soul-deep recognition that says, what I have now is holy. That vibration sends a message to the universe. I am ready for more because I already see the gift in what I hold. And then, more comes. Not because you demanded it, because you matched it. And here's another secret. Giving is part of the flow, but not giving from guilt. Not giving to manipulate. Not giving because you're afraid of appearing selfish. Giving because you know you have enough to share. That act sends a ripple through creation that echoes back multiplied. Jesus said, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, running over." This is not metaphor. It's mechanics. It's flow. It's law. When you give in alignment, you signal to the field, there is more where that came from. And the field responds, then here, take more. Prosperity is not excess. It is not greed. It is not about possessions. It's about permission. The moment you give yourself permission to prosper, to be whole, supported, abundant, you begin to see the kingdom expand through your life. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing. You stop surviving. And you begin to overflow. This is the ninth key. Not a call to greed, but a return to divine balance. You are not here to scrape by. You are not here to just make it. You are not here to humbly withhold your light. You are here to reflect the generosity of the universe itself. So open your mind, open your hands, open your heart, and allow divine order to flow through you, not as theory, but as lived experience. Because the moment you stop resisting abundance is the moment you become its vessel. And when you live in that flow, you discover the next key comes not through force, but through celebration. The key that turns everything into increase, multiplies miracles, and transforms even the ordinary into sacred fullness. Gratitude. There is a force so deceptively simple that many overlook it. A power so quiet, so gentle, that it's often underestimated. But in truth, it is one of the most potent spiritual technologies available to you. That force is gratitude. You may think of gratitude as a response, a polite thank you after something good happens. But real gratitude is not reaction. It is creation. Gratitude doesn't just acknowledge the blessing. Gratitude activates the blessing. It multiplies it. It magnetizes more of it. It opens the gates of abundance not because you're begging, but because you're aligned. Jesus didn't wait for the loaves to multiply before giving thanks. He blessed what wasn't enough as if it already was. And in doing so, he altered the field of reality. Because gratitude is not about what you see. It's about what you know. When you say thank you for what hasn't yet shown up, you're not lying to yourself. You're speaking from faith. You're anchoring yourself in divine order. You're declaring, I know the unseen is already moving. I know the provision is already in motion. I trust the process because I trust the source. And that shift from need to knowing is everything. Gratitude turns you from a beggar into a co-creator. It transforms your vibration from lack to fullness. It tells the universe, I'm not waiting to be blessed. I already am. And then, the blessings respond. Not because you earned them, but because you created resonance with them. This is not metaphysics for dreamers. This is spiritual law. And the law is always listening to your dominant vibration. So when you walk around saying, nothing is working, the law says, okay, let's mirror that. But when you say, even now I give thanks, the law says, they're in flow. Let's amplify that. It's not performance, it's alignment. And here's the brilliance. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for the money. You don't have to wait for the diagnosis. You don't have to wait for the breakthrough. You can begin right now, exactly where you are. Say it aloud if you dare. I am thankful. Not later. Not when it's perfect. Now. Thank you for the breath. Thank you for the awareness. Thank you for the light still burning in the dark. This kind of gratitude doesn't ignore pain. It transforms it. It doesn't pretend everything is fine. It chooses to find light even where shadows still linger. And here's the thing. Gratitude isn't always easy. It's effortless when life is smooth. But its true power shines in the struggle, when the bank account is empty, and you still say thank you. When the healing hasn't arrived, and you bless the body anyway. When the door hasn't opened, and you whisper your gratitude to the doorknob. That is mastery. That is kingdom vibration. Because in that space, you are no longer reacting to life. You are recalibrating it. You are choosing to see through the lens of spirit rather than circumstance. And that lens changes everything. Because what you bless increases. What you curse constricts. What you ignore withers. What you celebrate expands. So celebrate everything you can. Celebrate small kindnesses. Celebrate synchronicities. Celebrate the fact that you're even reading this. That you're awake enough to want to remember. That alone is a miracle. And when you walk in that vibration, you become magnetic. You begin to attract, not chase. To receive, not strive. To allow, not demand. Gratitude softens you, not into weakness, but into receptivity. It clears the static. It sharpens the signal. It invites heaven into your ordinary. That's why Jesus didn't just perform miracles. He gave thanks before them. He knew gratitude isn't the result of blessing. It's the catalyst of it. So what if you stopped waiting to be grateful? What if you stopped postponing your joy until the outcome arrived? What if this very moment was already sacred? Say it again. I am grateful. I am aligned. I am overflowing. Not because everything looks perfect, but because you've remembered the truth. You are already connected to the source of all that is good. And in that remembrance, your life begins to change. This is the 10th key. It doesn't require perfection. It only requires attention. The willingness to see the light that's already here and to honor it with your words, your heart, your breath. So pause. Look around. Look within. There is more working in your favor than you realize. And as you live from that space, the space of quiet gratitude, you become the blessing you once sought. But there's still something that blocks the flow more than scarcity, more than fear, more than pain, judgment. And now, the 11th key awaits. The path of no conflict. There is a subtle poison that seeps into even the most spiritual of hearts. A toxin so common, so reflexive, that it often goes unnoticed. It disguises itself as discernment, cloaks itself in morality, and calls itself wisdom. Its name is judgment, not the clarity that sees what is, not the insight that recognizes patterns, but the automatic condemnation, the mental reflex that says, I am above this, I am right, they are wrong. And every time you feed that reflex, you tighten the walls of your inner world. Judgment is a frequency that collapses expansion. It dims light. It shrinks possibility. It cuts you off from the very grace you claim to carry. Jesus said, "Judge not that you be not judged." Not as a suggestion, as a spiritual law, because what you project, you attract. What you condemn, you reinforce. What you hate in another, you bind in yourself. And this is the twist. Judgment doesn't just move outward, it moves inward. How often have you judged yourself? For past mistakes? For thoughts you shouldn't have had? For not being farther along by now? That inner critic wears many masks. It sounds like high standards. It sounds like responsibility. It sounds like tough love. But really, it's a form of self-harm. A constant shrinking of your light. And here's the truth. You cannot live in peace while living in war with yourself. You cannot receive the fullness of grace while denying it to others or to your own soul. So what's the alternative? Release the need to be right. Release the obsession with being better than. Release the reflex to divide. It doesn't mean you condone harm. It doesn't mean you become passive. It means you stop seeing through the eyes of ego and start seeing through the eyes of spirit, the eyes of love. When Jesus walked among the people, he didn't avoid the outcasts. He sat with them. He healed them. He saw through the labels and into the light, because the kingdom is not a place for the perfect. It is a space of union, and judgment is the barrier that keeps union from happening. When you judge, you separate. When you love, you unify. And here's what makes this key so vital. Judgment is often unconscious. It happens in the whispers of your mind, in the tightness of your chest, in the sudden withdrawal of your presence. That's why you must become aware of your reactions, aware of your stories, aware of the lens through which you see the world. Ask yourself, whenever irritation rises, what would love see here? Not what would love do, but what would love see? It would see beyond the words, beyond the behavior, beyond the mask. It would see pain beneath the cruelty, wounding beneath the attack, fear behind the control. And that vision, that divine perception, changes everything. You stop being reactive. You start being compassionate. Not in a sentimental way, but in a way that anchors the space with presence. And that presence, that non-judgmental awareness, it heals. It heals you first, because when you stop judging others, you soften your own edges. You stop holding yourself to impossible standards. You forgive yourself faster. You live lighter, and your energy shifts. You no longer vibrate at the frequency of conflict. You vibrate at the frequency of peace, and the universe mirrors that back. Judgment creates inner war. Non-judgment creates inner sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, intuition rises. Clarity becomes easier. Decision-making becomes smoother. Because you're no longer trying to sort the world into categories. You're simply seeing it through eyes that no longer need to control, through a heart that no longer fears being wrong. This is what it means to walk the path of no conflict. It doesn't mean life stops presenting challenges. It means you stop turning every challenge into a battlefield. You become like a mountain, still, rooted, unmoved by the winds of drama, and people feel it. They relax in your presence. They stop defending. They soften too, because judgment is contagious, but so is grace. And when you carry grace, you give others permission to drop their weapons. This is the 11th key, not a tool of avoidance, but a gateway to divine neutrality. You are not here to label. You are not here to divide. You are here to illuminate. And the more you practice this, the more peaceful your life becomes. Not because everyone around you changes, but because you no longer require them to. You see, you breathe, you bless, and you keep moving forward toward the next key, the one that reorders everything, the one that flips your priorities upside down and reveals the true foundation. Seek first the kingdom. There is a sentence, just one, that if lived, would dissolve confusion, end striving, and realign your entire life with divine order. You've heard it before, but hearing is not the same as living. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Not some things, not only spiritual things, all things, peace, provision, healing, direction, even the answers you didn't know how to ask for. But the power is not in the promise, it's in the priority. Seek first, not after you've tried everything else, not once your fear is handled, not after your outer life is stabilized. First, because the kingdom, the space of divine clarity, peace, and alignment, is not a place you eventually arrive at. It is the origin point from which all good flows. And if you build your life outside of that alignment, no matter how polished it looks, it will shake. It will feel unstable, fragile, temporary. You don't have to look far to see this. People chase success and still feel empty. They find relationships and still feel lonely. They manifest dreams and still feel unsettled, because outer things were never meant to lead. They were meant to follow. And when you reverse the order, when you try to add all the things before seeking the kingdom, you build your life on sand. But when the kingdom comes first, everything else finds its rightful place. So what does it mean to seek the kingdom? It's not about religious devotion. It's not about checking boxes or memorizing verses. It's about orientation. It means you align before you act. You center before you speak. You tune in before you respond. You ask truth to guide you before the world does. It means that your inner clarity becomes the compass, not the headlines. It means that your soul takes the lead, not your fear. It means that the sacred within you sets the rhythm, and the rest follows. And when that happens, you stop chasing. You stop panicking. You stop scrambling for validation, security, and answers. Because when you seek the kingdom first, you discover it was never far away. It was simply buried beneath your distractions. And when you live from that space, life meets you differently. You walk into rooms, and you're not scanning for approval. You're radiating presence. You're not trying to control outcomes. You're moving in harmony with a deeper rhythm. It doesn't mean you stop desiring. It means your desires become clearer, purer, more aligned with who you truly are. The ego wants now, the soul wants right. And when you seek first the kingdom, your desires shift from craving to calling. You stop asking, how do I get more? You start asking, what is trying to come through me now? That's the difference. One builds a life of grasping. The other becomes a vessel for divine overflow. So pause. Ask yourself, what have I been seeking first? Is it safety, status, control, approval? None of these are wrong, but none of them are God. And when they sit on the throne of your priorities, the kingdom fades into the background, not because it left, but because you turned away. But the good news is, it's always right here. One breath away, one moment of remembrance away, one still moment of surrender. You don't need to fix everything first. You don't need to purify yourself first. You simply need to reorder, kingdom first, then everything else. That doesn't mean you neglect the world. It means you stop using the world as your guide. You begin within. You begin with God. You begin with alignment. And from that place, you take action. This is why Jesus was never frantic, never reactive, never grasping. He moved from the kingdom, always. He didn't try to prove himself. He didn't chase outcomes. He didn't start with the problem. He started with presence. And so must you. This is the 12th key, the divine order of life. You don't get to wholeness by adding more. You return to wholeness by beginning in the right place. And when you do, things begin to unfold without force. The people arrive, the doors open, the wisdom lands. The right timing reveals itself, not as a reward, as a result. Because when you seek first the kingdom, you enter the current of divine intelligence, and you begin to move with the tide instead of against it. So today, let this be your prayer. I place the kingdom first. I place alignment first. I trust what follows, not because it's easy, but because it's true. And now that your life has been reoriented, it's time to look at the law that makes this possible. The law that governs every blessing and every block. The silent law beneath every experience. The law of cause and effect. There is no chaos in the universe. None. What looks like disorder is simply a system you don't yet understand. What appears random is only cause and effect beyond your current awareness. There are no accidents, no wasted moments, no unjust outcomes in the grand scheme of consciousness. Everything is rooted in law, not legal law, not human-made rules, but divine architecture. And one of the most powerful laws of all is this: as you sow, so shall you reap. Not because the universe is watching and tallying, but because vibration begets vibration. Energy out equals energy returned. Thoughts held become lives lived. Words spoken become worlds formed. This is not punishment. This is not reward. This is precision. It is the law of cause and effect, and it is always in motion. Every thought you think is a seed. Every belief you repeat is a blueprint. Every word you declare is a wave sent out into the invisible fabric of creation. And every action, especially those laced with feeling, is a command to the universe. This is what I believe is real, and so reality mirrors it, not always instantly, but inevitably. This is why so many feel stuck. They pray for healing while sowing thoughts of fear. They speak of abundance but secretly believe in lack. They want new relationships while nursing old resentment, and they wonder why nothing changes. But the law doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. The signal you emit daily through thoughts, emotions, and embodied energy. This isn't about blame. It's about power. Because once you see the law, you stop being a victim of your life. You start becoming the author of it. The field doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't listen to your intentions. It reads your vibration. So ask yourself now, not with shame, but with clarity. What am I planting? What are your dominant thoughts? What stories play on repeat beneath your breath? What emotions shape your mood more days than not? Because those are your causes. And your current experience is simply the harvest. But this isn't meant to condemn you. It's meant to liberate you. Because the moment you take responsibility for your cause, you open the door to a new effect. You can choose again. You can think again. You can speak a new future into motion. No matter how long you've lived in fear, lack, or pain, a new seed sown today can produce a new reality tomorrow. And yes, it may take time. Just like natural crops don't bloom the day they're planted, your new vibration may take a moment to gather momentum. But once it does, once it takes root, the law will not fail you. It can't. That's why Jesus went to the root of everything. He didn't just heal the symptom. He healed the belief. He didn't treat outcomes. He addressed origins because he understood. Until you shift the cause, the effect will always return in some form. So what are your spiritual causes? Are you operating from fear or trust? From illusion or truth? From ego or alignment? Even your silence creates. Even your inaction has an energetic tone. And here's where things deepen. Forgiveness and gratitude are not just emotions. They are cause generators. Every time you forgive, you sever a karmic loop. Every time you bless instead of curse, you change the ripple. Every time you give thanks, especially in difficulty, you send out a vibration that rewrites reality. So no, this isn't about being positive all the time. It's about becoming conscious. Because unconscious sowing leads to unconscious suffering. But conscious sowing? That leads to freedom. You begin to see how even a small shift in thought starts adjusting the external field. How a change in tone alters outcomes. How the unseen world bends itself around your inner reconfiguration. This is not magic. This is law. And the law is on your side. It is not watching with judgment. It is responding with symmetry. Whatever you offer consistently, in thought, in word, in presence, you will meet again. So why not begin offering something new? Why not plant peace instead of panic? Why not water love instead of offense? Why not speak from power instead of powerlessness? You're not stuck. You're just looping. But the loop breaks the moment you become aware. This is the 13th key. It hands you the pen. It points to the soil. It says, whatever you desire, begin now, within. And from that sacred soil, something holy begins to rise. A light not born from external validation, but from divine inheritance. It is the part of you that was never touched by fear, never altered by pain, never broken by time. It is the pattern that Jesus came to reveal, the divine spark that lives in you now. The next key is not about what you must become. It's about what you must remember, the Christ within. There is a flame inside you that cannot be extinguished. It is not of flesh. It is not of personality. It is not shaped by age, culture, or history. It is the pattern of wholeness, the divine blueprint whispered into your soul before your first breath. You didn't earn it. You didn't create it. You don't have to become worthy of it. You only have to remember the Christ is within you. Not as a historical figure to be worshipped from afar, not as a legend from a distant time, but as a living presence pulsing in the deepest part of you. The Christ is not the name of one man. It is a state of consciousness. It is the awakened awareness of your divine nature, the part of you that sees without fear, loves without condition, acts without ego. Jesus embodied that pattern perfectly, not to claim it for himself, but to mirror what's already true about you. He said, "The things I do, you shall do also." Not because he was trying to be poetic, but because he knew we are made of the same light. The difference is not essence, it is remembrance. You forgot. The world taught you to. It gave you names, roles, fears, and definitions. It layered your soul with stories of separation, and those stories became identity. But none of them are you. You are not your trauma. You are not your success. You are not the mask you wear to feel safe. Beneath it all is the real you, the holy you, the Christed you, and that part has never been damaged, never been diminished, never been lost, only buried. So now it rises, not through effort, but through unveiling. The spiritual path is not about becoming someone new. It's about peeling back the false until only truth remains. You've looked outside for permission. You've waited for someone to declare you enlightened, ready, pure. But divinity does not require approval. It requires recognition. You do not need to strive. You need to allow. The Christ within you doesn't demand perfection. It simply asks for space. Space to move, space to speak, space to radiate. And when you create that space, through stillness, through love, through surrender, it fills you. It becomes you, not as something added, but as something revealed, and everything shifts. You stop walking through life as a seeker. You begin walking as a presence, not to impress, but to bless, to anchor, to illuminate. Because when the Christ within you awakens, you don't need to argue truth. You embody it. Your presence becomes the sermon. Your breath becomes the prayer. Your silence becomes transmission. This is why Jesus moved the way he did. He didn't need long explanations. He didn't need rituals or temples to prove his access. He was the temple, and so are you. You are not here to imitate his personality. You are here to awaken his awareness, the awareness that heals by seeing, loves by nature, and moves without fear. The Christ is your true identity. Not your ego, not your achievements, not even your name. It is the light that came before all of that. And it is the light that will remain after all of that has passed. So how do you live from it? By choosing it, not once, but daily, in small moments, in the pause before reaction, in the breath before judgment, in the thought that chooses truth over fear. You won't always get it right. That's not the point. The point is to remember, again and again, this light lives in me. This power flows through me. This love is what I am. And the more you remember, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you don't just visit the Christ within. You live from it. You no longer need titles. You no longer need external authority. Because the ultimate authority is now alive and moving in your awareness. This is the 14th key. It is not a tool. It is the truth beneath all tools. It is the awareness that makes all the others possible. And from that awareness, a new birth begins. Not a birth into belief, but into being. Because once you remember the Christ within, you are no longer trying to awaken. You have awakened, and now you rise into the final key, the key that brings all others together, the key that begins not a new chapter, but a new life, the rebirth of the soul. There comes a moment on every true path, not marked by ceremony, nor crowned with applause, when something within quietly stirs and says, I cannot live as I did before, not because you've read enough, not because you've performed enough, but because something ancient has reawakened. Something eternal within you has remembered itself. This is not the beginning of religion. This is the beginning of rebirth. Not a birth into doctrine, not a conversion to belief, but a return to the truth of who you've always been. Before fear, before forgetting, before the world carved you into something small. You were not born into brokenness. You were born into light. But the world, in its forgetfulness, taught you to dim. It gave you names, numbers, limitations. It told you who to be, how to behave, what to desire. It traded your soul's radiance for society's approval. And slowly, you fell asleep, not in body, in awareness. You began to live from conditioning instead of clarity, from reaction instead of revelation, from borrowed stories instead of your own divine knowing. But no illusion can last forever. Eventually, the ache returns, the holy discontent, the quiet but relentless whisper. This isn't all there is. And when you finally stop running, when you finally become still enough to hear, the light begins to break through. This is the new birth, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. It feels like letting go. It feels like coming home. The ego will resist. It always does. Because the new birth means the death of false identity, the unraveling of the masks, the surrender of control. But don't be afraid. This is not death. It is transformation. The old self, the one who had to prove, perform, and please, begins to dissolve. And in its place, the soul rises, unarmored, unfiltered, undeniably free. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "Unless a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." He wasn't speaking of heaven in the clouds. He was speaking of awareness. The kingdom is not found with old eyes. It's seen only through the vision of the reborn. So what does this rebirth look like? It's not flashy. It's not loud. It happens in small, holy moments. When you choose stillness over striving. When you forgive before they apologize. When you speak truth even if your voice shakes. When you love yourself without condition. When you finally stop needing to become and simply be. You're not becoming a better version of the false self. You're returning to your real self, the one you've always been, beneath the roles, beneath the shame, beneath the survival strategies. That is the you that was created in the image of God. Not someday. Now. So let it happen. Let the layers fall. Let the striving rest. Let the truth rise. You are not your wounds. You are not your history. You are not what they did to you. You are what never changed. The light that remained, even in the darkest night. And now, that light is no longer hidden. You no longer live from theory. You live from embodiment. The Christ is not an idea you visit. It is a presence you now carry. The kingdom is not a far-off realm. It is your home, and you've returned. This is not just awakening. This is rebirth. And it changes everything. You no longer move to impress. You move to express the divine. You no longer chase identity. You radiate essence. You no longer seek power. You are power, shaped in love, rooted in truth. This is the 15th key. It is not the end. It is the beginning. Because now that the soul is awake, now that you've stepped out of the shell of separation, your entire life becomes the living proof of what you've remembered. You speak from wholeness. You walk in clarity. You serve from overflow. You are no longer the seeker. You are the found. You are no longer waiting. You are the answer. You are no longer wandering. You are home. And from here, a new chapter begins. But first, take a breath, because what follows is not instruction. It is integration, the weaving of all that has been remembered into a life that reflects it in form. The journey doesn't end. It only begins for real. Now. You've come far, not by crossing distance, but by returning inward. Not by adding, but by releasing. Not by chasing light, but by remembering you were made of it. Each key you've unlocked wasn't something external handed to you. It was a part of you being revealed, a veil falling, a truth rising. This was never about becoming someone new. It was always about becoming true. And now, here you are, not at the end, but at the edge. The threshold where knowing must become being, where clarity must become embodiment, where remembrance becomes reality. This is where the true alchemy begins, because truth, no matter how beautiful, does not serve you unless it is lived. You've held the keys. Now you must walk through the doors they've opened. You've seen the kingdom. Now you must build your life from it. You've remembered the Christ within. Now you must move as that awareness in the world. And that means this: you no longer ask the world to mirror back your worth. You anchor it first, and let the mirror catch up. You no longer pray for peace as if it's missing. You become the peace, and watch how life rearranges. You no longer wait for the signs. You are the sign. You are the living transmission of divine frequency. Your breath is sacred. Your presence is medicine. Your choices are creative forces shaping timelines. You are not the old self rebranded. You are not your past painted over. You are the reborn soul, quiet, rooted, undeniably aligned. From this space, you will still feel the pull of the world. Distractions will still knock. Old thoughts may still whisper, but now you know those voices are echoes, and you no longer bow to echoes. You move by truth. You act from center. You speak from knowing. When conflict rises, you breathe instead of react. When scarcity knocks, you bless instead of grasp. When fear tightens, you soften into stillness. And every time you do, you reaffirm, I remember who I am. Not a name, not a story, but a soul. A vessel of the eternal walking in human skin. Not to escape this world, but to transform it. This is the integration. This is the real work, not doing more, but doing differently, doing from alignment. Everything you touch now carries the vibration of remembrance. Every word you speak carries the code of love. Every action you take becomes part of the architecture of light in this world. You are no longer the student. You are the sanctuary. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped running from the one answer that matters. The kingdom is within me. I am not separate. I am not broken. I am divine. And when you live from that truth, miracles are no longer rare. They are the natural rhythm of your life. Doors open because your presence opens them. Hearts heal because your peace makes space for them. Cycles end because your vibration no longer sustains them. You are the turning point. You are the embodied key. And now, you walk, not as someone trying to get somewhere, but as someone who knows the light they sought was always inside. So let the world change around you. Let circumstances shift. Let paths appear and disappear. But let your truth remain steady. Let your heart remain soft. Let your words remain sacred. Let your walk remain anchored in the kingdom you now carry. This is not an ending. This is your initiation. And from here, the real journey begins. Welcome back. Welcome home. Welcome to the life that's finally yours to live. You didn't come here for information. You came for something deeper. You came for the sound beneath the words, the recognition beneath the ideas, the soul remembering that happens in stillness, between the lines, between the breaths. And now, you feel it. Something subtle has shifted. Not in your outer life, not yet, but in your inner orientation. You're no longer looking out into the world for your center. You've come back to the stillness within, the one that never left, the one that was waiting, patient, timeless, whole. This entire journey has not been about change. It has been about return. Return to what is real, to what is eternal, to what was always yours but forgotten beneath the noise. You're no longer just seeking. You're no longer just preparing. You are living as the one you came here to remember. And what does that look like? It looks like gentleness with your own process, like speaking truth without needing to defend it, like choosing silence over noise, stillness over striving, love over division. It looks like knowing who you are, without needing to prove it to anyone. Because now you know, the Christ within you is not theory. It is presence. It is power. It is peace. And you are no longer a visitor to the kingdom. You are a resident, a lighthouse, a living invitation for others to remember too. So don't go back to sleep. Don't return to forgetting. Don't trade the flame for comfort. Keep tending to the fire. Keep listening for the silence. Keep choosing the inner way, even when the outer world doesn't understand it. You were not meant to fit. You were meant to light the way. And now that you've remembered, everything you touch will carry that vibration. Let it ripple, let it echo, let it quietly, steadily transform the world around you. Not through force, but through frequency. Not through fame, but through presence. Not through noise, but through being. You are the evidence. You are the message. You are the sacred bridge between what is seen and what is true. And now, you walk forward. Not alone, never alone, but held, guided, empowered. Because the kingdom is not ahead of you. It walks with you. It walks as you. So rise now. Rise not into effort, but into identity. The rebirth has already begun, and the world will feel it. Welcome back. Welcome home. Welcome to the light you never truly lost.